I got separated and I found myself in my mid-50s thinking like, okay, what do I do now? Where am I going? Who am I?
In a tearful confession that stunned the world, Maria Shriver recently opened up about the shocking affair that shattered her 25-year marriage to Arnold Schwarzenegger. For years, she kept silent about the devastating betrayal, but now she's sharing the raw details of the pain and heartbreak she endured. Join us as we explore Maria's journey and discover the untold story behind the affair that changed everything. Who is Maria Shriver? Maria Shriver was born into one of the most well-known families in American history. She is part of the Kennedy family, often referred to as American royalty, because of their long legacy in politics and public service. Her mother was Eunice Kennedy Shriver, the sister of President John F. Kennedy, Senator Robert F. Kennedy, and Senator Ted Kennedy. Her father, Sergeant Shriver, was also a major public figure. He founded the Peace Corps and ran as the Democratic vice presidential nominee in 1972. From a young age, Maria saw firsthand what it meant to live in the public eye. The Kennedy family was constantly in the news, and she witnessed both the praise and the intense scrutiny that came with it. She also saw tragedy. The assassinations of her uncles John and Robert left a deep impact on her and the entire family. Despite these losses, the Kennedy family remained committed to their public roles. She went to Georgetown University in Washington, D.C., and graduated in 1977 with a degree in American Studies. While there, she developed a strong interest in storytelling and media. She was drawn to journalism, a field that allowed her to inform the public and raise awareness about important issues. Even though her family was known for politics, she chose to step into a different kind of spotlight, one that focused on reporting, writing, and interviewing. Her journalism career began soon after college. She worked her way up through the ranks, starting as a writer and producer for local TV stations before landing bigger roles. She joined CBS News in the early 1980s and worked as a co-anchor on CBS Morning News. She later moved to NBC News, where she became a national correspondent for Dateline NBC. Maria stood out for her intelligence, compassion, and ability to connect with people. Her interviews often felt personal and real, not just like someone reading questions off a script. She wasn't afraid to show emotion, and that helped her build trust with viewers. Over the years, Maria Shriver earned a strong reputation as a journalist. Her work was recognized with several awards, including a Peabody Award, which is one of the highest honors in broadcasting. She also won an Emmy for her reporting. But what made Maria different from many others in her field was the way she blended hard news with personal stories. She didn't just focus on politics or crime. She talked about family, faith, identity, and mental health long before those topics became more common in the media. Her success in journalism showed that she could stand on her own, outside the shadow of her famous family. She had used her platform to raise awareness about serious issues and to give a voice to people who were often overlooked. She brought empathy into her reporting and often encouraged viewers to look beyond the headlines and understand the human side of every story. Maria also used her growing fame to support causes she believed in, like Alzheimer's research and women's rights, laying the groundwork for future advocacy work. But her life would soon take another turn when she met a rising Hollywood star, and together they became one of the most talked-about couples in America. Meeting Arnold Schwarzenegger. Maria Shriver met Arnold Schwarzenegger in 1977 at a charity tennis tournament held at the home of journalist Tom Brokaw. At the time, Maria was just starting out in her journalism career, and Arnold was already gaining fame as a bodybuilder and actor. Their meeting brought together two very different worlds. Maria came from a background deeply rooted in American politics and public service, while Arnold was an Austrian immigrant who had made a name for himself in the world of bodybuilding and was just beginning to find success in Hollywood. Despite their different upbringings, there was an immediate connection between them. Their early relationship was shaped by both attraction and challenge. Maria, with her Kennedy heritage and calm, thoughtful nature, was very different from Arnold, who was bold, confident, and often outspoken. He had a big personality and a strong presence wherever he went. Maria was more private and measured, These differences sometimes led to tension, but they also helped balance each other. Arnold admired Maria's intelligence and grace, while Maria appreciated Arnold's drive and energy. Still, it wasn't always easy to bridge the gap between their very different lives. During their courtship, Maria and Arnold had to learn how to navigate their differences. They came from opposite sides of the public sphere, Maria from political royalty, and Arnold from the flashy world of entertainment and sports. But over time, they found common ground in their ambition and mutual respect. They also shared a strong belief in working hard and making a difference, even if their ways of doing so were very different. Their relationship grew steadily, and their bond deepened despite the unique pressures that came with their very public lives. By the 1980s, the media had taken a strong interest in their relationship. It was the kind of story the press loved. Two people from completely different backgrounds coming together in a high-profile romance. Magazines and newspapers often referred to them as a golden couple. Arnold, the rising movie star, and Maria, the elegant journalist with political ties, made a striking pair at public events. Their appearances together at award shows, charity functions, and political gatherings drew a lot of attention. The public was fascinated not just by who they were individually, but by the power they seemed to have as a couple. Throughout this time, Maria continued to work as a journalist, and Arnold continued to rise in Hollywood, starring in blockbuster films like Conan the Barbarian and The Terminator. Despite their busy schedules and the demands of fame, they stayed committed to each other. People admired how they seemed to support one another's careers while building a life together. For many, they represented a modern American love story, one that crossed boundaries of background, culture, and fame. But as their relationship grew and moved toward marriage, there were still questions about how their differences would play out in the long run. Even so, they pushed forward, determined to make it work. The Wedding of Power. On April 26, 1986, Maria Shriver and Arnold Schwarzenegger were married in a ceremony that felt like something out of history. The wedding took place at St. Francis Xavier Roman Catholic Church in Hyannis, Massachusetts, followed by a grand reception at the famous Kennedy family compound in Hyannisport. This wasn't just a celebrity wedding. It was seen by many as the joining of two powerful worlds. Maria, the daughter of Eunice Kennedy Shriver and part of America's most iconic political family, was marrying Arnold, the Austrian immigrant who had become one of the biggest movie stars in the world. Their union was more than personal. It felt symbolic. The choice to hold the reception at the Kennedy compound carried deep meaning. That property had been the heart of the Kennedy family for decades. It was the place where President John F. Kennedy had spent summers, where major decisions were made, and where many family memories were created. Having the wedding celebration there showed that Arnold was being welcomed not only into Maria's life, but into one of the most closely watched families in America. It also highlighted the importance the Kennedys placed on family and tradition. The wedding was attended by about 500 guests, including many well-known figures from politics, entertainment, and media. Ted Kennedy, Maria's uncle, walked her down the aisle. Caroline Kennedy, JFK's daughter, was one of her bridesmaids. On Arnold's side, his bodybuilding mentor, Joe Weider, was in attendance, along with friends from the fitness and film industries. The mix of guests showed just how unique their relationship was. Two very different social circles coming together to celebrate their love. Friends and family who were present recalled the day as emotional and full of joy. Despite all the media attention and the pressure of public life, the couple seemed relaxed and genuinely happy. People close to them spoke about how much they cared for each other and how they had worked through differences over the years. Maria's family, while initially unsure about Arnold when the relationship began, had grown to accept and even admire him. Arnold, in turn, had embraced Maria's world, showing respect for her values and her family's legacy. The press followed the event closely, though access to the ceremony and reception was limited to protect the couple's privacy. Still, the public was fascinated. Newspaper articles and television reports focused on everything from Maria's wedding dress, designed by Carolina Herrera, to Arnold's heartfelt vows. In the days after the wedding, headlines referred to it as a dynastic union and a Hollywood meets Washington event. It was clear that this was more than a love story. It was a moment that captured the imagination of the public. People were eager to see what this couple would do next, especially since both had such strong personalities and careers. What followed was a life filled with family, fame, and big responsibilities, and things were just getting started. A family and a public life together. After their high-profile wedding, Maria Shriver and Arnold Schwarzenegger settled into a life that was anything but ordinary. Over the next several years, they built a family while also managing two demanding and very public careers. Together, they had 4 children: Catherine, Christina, Patrick, and Christopher. Each child grew up in the spotlight, but Maria and Arnold worked hard to give them a stable upbringing, even while living in the middle of constant media attention. Catherine, their firstborn, was born in 1989. She would go on to become a best-selling author and advocate for self-help and mental health awareness. Christina, born in 1991, pursued a career in film production and has stayed mostly behind the scenes. Patrick, born in 1993, followed in his father's footsteps by stepping into acting and modeling and also launching a business of his own. The youngest, Christopher, was born in 1997 and has remained mostly private, focusing on school and personal growth. Despite the fame of their parents, the children were largely shielded from the public during their early years, thanks to Maria and Arnold's efforts to keep family life grounded. During this time, both Maria and Arnold had full careers. Arnold was at the height of his success in Hollywood, starring in blockbuster action films like Terminator 2, True Lies, and Kindergarten Cop. He became a global movie icon, known for his unique mix of physical strength and charisma. At the same time, Maria continued working in television journalism. She held high-profile positions at NBC News and produced documentaries and specials that often focused on issues like gender, mental health, and family life. Even while raising children, she stayed connected to her work, which was important to her not just professionally, but personally as well. Maria also began to focus more on advocacy, especially in areas close to her heart. She became deeply involved in Alzheimer's awareness after her father, Sergeant Shriver, was diagnosed with the disease. She wrote books, gave speeches, and launched initiatives to educate the public about brain health. She also championed causes related to women's empowerment, work-life balance, and volunteerism. Maria believed in the power of individual action and used her platform to encourage others to give back to their communities. Everything changed in 2003 when Arnold announced he was running for governor of California. This move marked a new chapter in their lives. Arnold's decision to enter politics brought even more attention to their family. Maria stepped back from her television work to support his campaign, despite her deep ties to the Democratic Party. Arnold ran as a Republican, which raised eyebrows, especially given Maria's strong Kennedy family connections. Still, she stood by him, showing that their partnership was based on personal loyalty, even when they had political differences. When Arnold won the election, Maria took on the role of First Lady of California from 2003 to 2011. In that role, she didn't just stay in the background. Instead, she used her position to launch several major initiatives. She created the California Women's Conference, which brought together thousands of women each year to discuss leadership, wellness, and success. She also founded the Minerva Awards to recognize women who made a difference in their communities. Her work helped elevate the role of First Lady into one of true influence. During this period, the public saw Maria and Arnold as a powerful couple. They were admired for how they seemed to balance fame, work, and family. They were often photographed together at political events, movie premieres, charity functions, and school gatherings. To many people, they represented the modern ideal of a successful marriage, two individuals with their own careers and identities, yet fully committed to each other and their children. But behind the scenes, there were cracks beginning to form, and soon the image of the perfect family would be challenged in a way no one expected. Arnold's affair and secret child. In 2011, just as Arnold Schwarzenegger was stepping away from his role as governor of California, a deeply personal secret from his past came to light. What had been hidden for over a decade suddenly became public knowledge, and it shocked not only his family but also the millions of people who had admired him and Maria Shriver as a strong, successful couple. The revelation that Arnold had fathered a child with a longtime member of their household staff, Mildred Baena, brought their private lives into full public view and marked the beginning of the end of their 25-year marriage. Mildred Baena had worked for the Schwarzenegger-Shriver family for over 20 years. She was more than just a housekeeper. She had become part of the household, someone the family saw on a daily basis. Maria reportedly trusted her and had no reason to suspect that anything inappropriate had ever taken place. But behind closed doors, Arnold and Mildred had crossed a line that would have lasting consequences. Their affair happened in the late 1990s, at a time when Arnold was still mainly focused on his film career and Maria was active in journalism and raising their children. The most painful detail, which became known later, was the timing of the pregnancies. Around the same time that Maria was pregnant with their youngest son, Christopher, Mildred was also pregnant with Arnold's child. That child, Joseph Baena, was born just days after Christopher in 1997. Arnold and Maria were raising their 4 children in their Los Angeles home, while Mildred continued to work in the household with her newborn son. For years, the truth remained hidden. Even as Joseph began to grow and show a striking physical resemblance to Arnold, the truth remained unspoken, at least publicly. The secret unraveled in 2011. Shortly after Arnold left office as governor. As the couple began discussing their future and their relationship, Maria reportedly confronted Arnold during a counseling session. She had begun to suspect something was wrong, and Arnold finally admitted that he was Joseph's father. Maria was devastated. The betrayal hit her on multiple levels. Not only had her husband been unfaithful, but the affair had happened under their own roof, with someone she trusted, while their children were young. News of the affair broke in May 2011. Maria released a public statement asking for privacy and expressing deep sadness. She said she was trying to protect her children and find healing. Arnold also issued a statement admitting responsibility and apologizing to Maria, his children, and his supporters. The media quickly picked up the story, and within days, it was headline news around the world. The idea that one of the most powerful and seemingly stable couples in the country had been shaken by such a personal scandal captured the attention of millions. The emotional fallout was intense. Maria, who had always been known for her grace and strength, remained mostly silent in the immediate aftermath. She did not go on a media tour or make public appearances to discuss what happened. Instead, she focused on her children and took time to figure out what would come next. Friends close to her said she was heartbroken but determined to stay strong for her family. Arnold later confirmed the story in interviews and in his 2012 autobiography, Total Recall. In the book, he admitted to keeping the secret from Maria and expressed regret for his actions. He wrote about the moment Maria confronted him and how painful it was to watch his marriage fall apart because of his mistakes. He also described his relationship with Joseph and said he had taken responsibility as a father. Joseph Baena, the child at the center of the story, stayed out of the spotlight during his early years. But as he grew older, he began to draw attention. His resemblance to Arnold became more noticeable, especially as he started posting photos of himself working out and bodybuilding, much like his father had done decades earlier. Eventually, Joseph confirmed his identity and began speaking publicly about his relationship with Arnold. While he was not raised in the same household as Arnold's other children, he has formed a close bond with his father over time. He has also started acting and working in real estate, building a career of his own while handling the public curiosity that comes with his last name. The scandal deeply affected the Schwarzenegger-Shriver family. It ended a long marriage and changed the way many people saw Arnold. For Maria, it was a moment of personal heartbreak, but it also marked the start of a new chapter in her life, one where she would slowly step back into the spotlight on her own terms. And after the storm passed, Maria's next steps would show a whole different side of her strength and character: the divorce and public response. In July 2011, just a few months after the news of Arnold Schwarzenegger's affair became public, Maria Shriver officially announced that she was separating from him. Soon after, she filed for divorce in Los Angeles County Superior Court. It was a painful but expected move. The news had shocked the public, but it was even more devastating for Maria, who had spent over 2 decades building a life with someone she believed she could trust. In her public statement, she asked for compassion, privacy, and respect for her children as the family went through this difficult time. What surprised many people was how long it took for the divorce to be finalized. Although the filing happened in 2011, the legal process stretched on for 10 years. It wasn't until December 2021 that Maria and Arnold's divorce was officially completed. For years, the case was considered inactive, with no clear movement in court. This raised a lot of questions about the delay. According to reports, the couple had no major conflicts or legal fights that held up the process. Instead, it seems they simply took their time, choosing to focus on their children and personal healing, rather than rush through the legal paperwork. Despite the long process, Maria and Arnold remained civil. They were seen together at family events and continued to co-parent their children in a respectful way. Since their youngest son, Christopher, was still a minor at the time of the separation, custody arrangements were handled quietly and without public drama. The older children were already adults, so custody wasn't a legal issue for them. As for property and financial matters, sources later said the couple split their assets evenly, which reportedly included a large estate with homes, investments, and retirement funds. California is a community property state, so assets acquired during the marriage were divided equally. The children responded to the situation with maturity and understanding, at least in public. While they never made detailed statements about the affair or the divorce, they showed support for both parents. Over the years, they have continued to post about their love for their mother on social media and appear alongside their father at events. It was clear that Maria and Arnold both prioritized their children's emotional well-being, and that helped the family stay close even through a very public and personal crisis. In 2012, Arnold released his autobiography, Total Recall: My Unbelievably True Life Story. In the book, he wrote openly about the affair and how it affected his family. He admitted to keeping the truth from Maria and expressed regret over his actions. He also described the moment when Maria confronted him during a counseling session, saying it was the most painful moment of his life. While his words gave readers insight into his perspective, many people still saw the book as part of his effort to control the narrative around what had happened. Maria chose a quieter path. For years, she didn't speak publicly about the affair or the divorce, but in time, she would find her own voice again and begin to share her journey of healing and personal growth. Maria's road to healing. After the end of her marriage, Maria Shriver entered a new chapter of her life, one that was centered on healing, growth, and self-discovery. One of the ways Maria began to process her pain was through writing. In 2008, before the affair became public, she published a short and personal book called Just Who Will You Be?, which explored the question of identity and purpose. After the divorce, she returned to this theme in a deeper and more vulnerable way with I've Been Thinking in 2018. This book became a bestseller and connected with people from all walks of life. In it, Maria shared her reflections on grief, love, faith, parenting, and moving forward after loss. She didn't pretend to have all the answers. Instead, she offered readers the same questions and thoughts that she was asking herself in her own life. Even while focusing on her personal growth, Maria continued to advocate for causes she had always cared about. Alzheimer's awareness remained a top priority, especially after the passing of her father, Sergeant Shriver, in 2011. She launched the Women's Alzheimer's movement to support research and raise awareness, particularly about how the disease affects women. Maria also returned to media in a fresh and modern way. She launched a podcast, wrote a newsletter called Sunday Paper, and continued to do interviews with thought leaders, experts, and everyday people who inspired her. These platforms gave her a voice again, not just as a journalist, but as someone who was still growing, learning, and evolving. Through this work, Maria reminded people that it's never too late to start over or to find meaning in a new phase of life. Maria finally speaks out. For over a decade, Maria Shriver chose to stay mostly silent about one of the most painful chapters of her life, her separation and eventual divorce from Arnold Schwarzenegger. While the media had covered every detail of the scandal in 2011, Maria kept her feelings and experiences mostly private. She focused on her family, continued her advocacy work, and quietly built a new life. But now, with the release of her deeply personal book, I Am Maria, she's opening up in her own words. She's finally sharing what it really felt like to experience such a public betrayal and how she found her way through it. In her book, Maria describes the moment she learned the truth about Arnold's affair with their longtime housekeeper, Mildred Baena. It was more than just shocking. It was earth-shattering. She writes about sitting alone on a hotel room floor in total darkness, paralyzed by sadness and fear. The news didn't just change her marriage, it changed her sense of self. Everything she thought she knew had suddenly fallen apart. She recalls telling herself in that dark moment, "Maria, this doesn't have to be the end of you. It can't be the end of you. Make it a new beginning for you." Even in the middle of deep emotional pain, she knew she had to survive and rebuild. Maria doesn't hide the weight of what she felt in the weeks and months that followed. She says she was consumed with grief and racked with confusion, anger, fear, sadness, and anxiety. Her world had been turned upside down, and it left her feeling completely ungrounded. She admits it broke not only her heart but also her spirit. After 25 years of marriage and building a life with Arnold, everything felt uncertain. She questioned who she was and where she belonged. In her words, "Honestly, it was brutal, and I was terrified." The path to healing was not fast or easy. Maria is honest about the fact that it took years, and it was far from straightforward. She didn't pretend to have the answers right away. Instead, she searched for peace in many different ways. She writes, "I'm also going to spare you a litany of all my trips to various therapists, healers, shamans, and psychics." She even traveled across the country to spend time in a cloistered convent, looking for silence and space to understand her pain. Through that long and difficult process, Maria began to see things more clearly. She started to understand that true peace and security don't come from another person. They come from within. She reflects on some of the beliefs she used to hold, especially the idea that a person's value comes from being partnered or chosen. "I used to believe that if you didn't have a partner, you must be unworthy and unlovable," she writes. "I've learned that nothing could be further from the truth." This realization became a powerful turning point for her. She no longer looked to others to define her worth. Instead, she began building a new version of herself, one rooted in self-respect, independence, and honesty. If you found Maria's story moving, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to stay updated on more inspiring stories. Thanks for watching.